prefer, would rather than, had better. You asked for a lesson on this topic, so here it is. By the end of this lesson, you'll know how to use these phrases easily. No problem. My name is Wasifa. Let's start. I have 2 streaming services. Which one do you like more? For me, Netflix. I have 2 kinds of headphones. Which one do you like more? For me, over-ear. I have 2 types of weekend plans. Which one do you like more? For me, a movie marathon. We can say, I like a movie marathon more, or I prefer a movie marathon. Same thing. I like Netflix more, or I prefer Netflix. Same thing. I like the movie marathon more. I prefer a movie marathon. I prefer to watch a movie marathon. What's the difference? Prefer watching or prefer to watch? More on that in a minute. Understanding prefer. Prefer definition. There are 2 options. I like one option more. Prefer is a verb. It tells you what our preference is. Preference. Preference. Preference is the noun form. I prefer Netflix, or Netflix is my preference. It's good to know the word preference because I'm going to use it a lot in today's lesson. In these examples, we are talking about our general opinion. This is what we like. This is what we prefer. Normally, usually, generally. But what if I want to give you a preference for a specific situation in the present or future, like a decision? We need would prefer. Let's compare. General. Do you prefer a city break or a beach holiday? I prefer a beach holiday. My general opinion. Specific decision. Should we book that trip to Bali or New York? I think we would prefer Bali. This is for this specific trip. I'm not talking about what we like more in general. Here's another example. General. I prefer to keep my phone on silent during the workday. It helps me focus. Specific decision. I have to call you tonight about the project. Is 7 p.m. okay? I would prefer to get a text with the details, to be honest. Here, I'm talking about tonight. I have good news. We can use would rather here also. I would rather get a text with the details. Yep. Grammar. Prefer versus would prefer versus would rather. We need to look at the grammar. Structure. Example. Prefer noun. I prefer mechanical keyboards. Prefer infinitive or gerund. I prefer to code in Python, or I prefer coding in Python. Export to Sheets. Gerund, infinitive. Remember a couple of minutes ago I said, what's the difference prefer watching or prefer to watch? Let's take a look. Prefer gerund or prefer to infinitive. Mini reminder. A gerund is an ing form that functions as a noun. The infinitive is to plus the base verb. They are both correct, and many times they are the same. Don't worry. I prefer learning languages with an app, or I prefer to learn languages with an app. All good. But many times prefer gerund is focusing on the experience. Do I like this or not? Prefer infinitive focuses more on a habit. It doesn't mean you like it. Let's compare. I prefer working from a coffee shop. I like the atmosphere and the background noise. It's a nice experience. I prefer to check my email only twice a day. This makes it less distracting. This is a habit, a preference. I mean, does anyone really like checking emails? Just remember that yes, there is this nuance, but usually the forms are interchangeable. Don't worry. Structure, example. Would prefer plus infinitive. I would prefer to take the train. Would rather plus base verb. I would rather take the train. Export to Sheets. No to with would rather. Also, would rather is more common and would prefer is more formal. To be honest, I personally use would rather a lot more every day, but the meaning is the same. Don't worry. Contractions and mini review. Here's a tip to sound natural. Contract. Contract the subject and would when you're speaking. I'd prefer. I'd rather. you'd prefer, you'd rather, and so on. So sometimes when you're listening to a native speaker and you're wondering, where's the would? Would prefer, would rather? You know it's probably contracted. Mini review. We use prefer for a general preference. My boss prefers early meetings. My boss prefers having early meetings, or my boss prefers to have early meetings. General preference, noun, gerund, experience, infinitive. All good. We can use would rather and would prefer for a specific preference in the present or future, usually with a decision. We can join the call now or in 15 minutes. I would prefer to join in 15 minutes. I'd rather join in 15 minutes. Would rather is more common, and we do not use to. Combining two options, then, rather than, to. Okay, but what do we do if we want to have two options in one sentence? Structure, example. Prefer noun, to noun. Prefer gerund, to gerund. Prefer infinitive, rather than, base verb. Would prefer, infinitive, rather than, base verb. Would rather, base verb, then, base verb. And you can see it's possible to remove the verb after then when it's already clear. We don't need to repeat start twice or take twice. There's a lot of information here. It's important to learn combinations. In English, we are often taught learn vocabulary, learn grammar. But you have to learn combinations, memorize pairs and groups of words. Let's look at these combinations again with different examples. The team prefers video games to board games. The team prefers developing games to testing them. The team prefers to release a beta rather than wait for the final version. The team would prefer to work remotely rather than be in the office. The team would rather launch the new app today than delay it until tomorrow. Pause the lesson and think of your own examples. You really want to practice these combinations, and we don't want to mix and match. We wouldn't say, I would rather than. Stick to these combinations here. More on rather than. Rather than. I want to look at this one in a bit more detail. Here's an example we looked at a second ago. The team would prefer to work remotely rather than be in the office. You can see rather than gives us a preference. But it's not only used with would prefer. It can be used like instead of in different situations. They chose to invest in a marketing campaign rather than hire more staff. Instead of hiring more staff. Rather than just giving me the answer, the AI explained the steps, instead of just giving me the answer. Polite requests with would prefer. So let's do another common structure. Imagine there's a big conference tomorrow. When does the keynote speech start? It starts at 9, but I'd prefer everyone to be in their seats by 8:45. Would prefer plus object plus infinitive. This is a formal and polite way to say I want. I want everyone to be here at 8:45. My manager said that she'd prefer us to submit the report by noon rather than the end of the day. Would you prefer me to open a new document, or are you okay? And here's another one. I would prefer it if you didn't use your phone during the movie. Would prefer it if plus past simple. This is used for polite requests or things we want in the present. What? We use the past simple for the present? Yes! Remember, you want to memorize combinations. Think of these structures as one piece of vocabulary. It'll make your life much easier. My landlord would prefer it if I painted the walls a neutral color. Of course, the company would prefer it if we worked overtime for free. Would you prefer it if I opened the chat window, or are you okay? Had better, a strong warning. Last point in today's lesson. Many students often confuse would rather and had better, but these are completely different things. Would rather, preference. You know this. I'd rather use the dark mode on my phone than the light mode. Had better. This is a strong warning. There will be consequences if you don't do this. Consequences. Consequences. A consequence is a negative result because of your action. For example, if you miss a deadline, what's the consequence? You get a warning from your boss. That's the consequence. And this is a set expression. We don't say have better or has better. It's always had better. You had better finish that project today. I'm warning you. There will be consequences. And in informal English, people often drop the had. You better, she better, he better. The CEO had better not miss this flight again, or there will be hell to pay. So, had better can be a really strong warning, but we also use it to mean, I should do this. It's better if I do this. It's getting late. I'd better leave before the traffic gets bad. Notice the contraction, I'd, and this time it's I had, not I would. That cafe is always busy. We'd better get there early, don't you think? Your membership expires next month. You'd better renew it. So with these examples here, there is a consequence if I don't do something. Let's compare. I would rather stay here. I had better stay here. Both are correct, but the feeling is different. The meaning is different. I would rather stay here is my preference. We can go to the park, we can go shopping. Nope, I'd rather stay here. I'm comfortable. I had better stay here is what I should do. I left my laptop charging and the cord is faulty. It's not safe to leave the house. I'd better stay here. Final summary. You can always pause the video to review everything. Leave me your examples in the comments. You had better leave me your examples in the comments. I'm warning you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope it helped you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.